Welcome to the International Desk. I'm Lynda Kinkade, live from the CNN Centre. We start with a blistering report on doping in athletics that cites Russia for systemic corruption backed by the government. An independent commission released the report earlier in Geneva. It recommends Russia be suspended from upcoming track and field competitions and recommends lifetime bans for 5 Russian athletes. World Sports' Ridelll joins me now for more on all of this. And Don, does this mean they could potentially miss next year's Olympics?
Well, that is certainly one of the potential outcomes here. That is what this independent commission has recommended. Dick Pound, the former head of the World Anti-Doping Agency, headed up this 3-man panel, and they've been looking into this for the last 10 or 11 months or so. And that was one of the key statements that came out of this press conference, and so many damning and devastating lines, both for Russian athletics, Russian sport, and athletics in general. But that is one of the key recommendations, and this is why he thinks they shouldn't be allowed to go to Rio next year.
For 2016, our recommendation is that the Russian Federation be suspended. In fact, one of our hopes is that they will volunteer that so they can undertake the remedial work in time to make sure that Russian athletes can compete under a new framework, if you like. If they don't, then it has to play itself out, and the outcome may be that there are no Russian track and field athletes in Rio. I hope that they get they recognize that it's time to change and make those changes.
Lynda, just to give you an idea of just how devastating this is, I mean, for example, within the Russian system, athletes were given advance notice of drug tests. They helped, they hid the fact that tests were missed. They bullied doping control officers and their families. They took bribes to help cover up missed tests. They allowed athletes to compete before their bans had expired. And one of the most damning pieces of information we heard was that the doping lab in Russia maliciously destroyed more than 1,400 samples for tests. So, I mean, just absolutely devastating here.
Unbelievable, really incredible. And Russia is a really big player in the world of sport, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, remember, this is a country that hosted the last Winter Games in 2014 at great expense to Russia. Remember, they spent $50 billion on it. They're due to host the Football World Cup in 2018. And their athletes go to these games and perform very, very well. At 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics, they were the top of the medal table. Depending on how you count the medals in London 2012, they were second or fourth. I mean, they won 81 medals there, 24 gold. But the line coming out of this commission today is that they sabotaged the London Olympics. They had athletes who went to those games who really shouldn't have been able to compete, and yet the Russian system enabled them to be there.
And Sebastian Coe, of course, is the president of the Association of Athletics. He, of course, had high praise for the outgoing president, who is now under investigation and facing very serious allegations. Is there a cloud over whether he can continue in that role?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we're actually going to speak to him in the next few minutes, and that's a question we will be putting to him right at the very top of the list. I mean, he was so complimentary about Lamine Diack. I mean, when he took over that position, which Diack had held for 16 years, he spoke of his deep affection and great admiration for Mr. Diack. Of course, he's now having to severely backtrack on those sentiments. And one of the questions that Mr. Coe has to answer is that he was the vice president of the IAAF for 7 years, and he claims that he knew nothing of what was going on. And given that he was in such a senior position, that is quite a serious hurdle that he needs to overcome with regards to his own credibility and whether the IAAF can get out of this. And, you know, the thing we always come back to when we talk about doping in sport is, let's just say it's only 1 or 2 people who are cheating. The concern is that whenever great times or great performances are put in, we end up thinking that everybody's cheating. And when we find out that there is such systemic corruption going on within Russia and maybe within the greater sport, then it's very, very difficult to take any of these performances seriously. And once that mindset's in, that sport's finished. So Sebastian Coe has an absolutely monumental task on his hands now.
That's right. A lot of questions about how far back this actually goes.
Yeah.
Ridelll, thank you so much for joining us on set. We appreciate it. Now for the Russia reaction, let's bring in senior international correspondent Matthew Chance, who joins us now from Moscow. Matthew, is Russia defending these accusations?
Well, it is. I mean, first of all, it's rejecting the allegations, saying that it doesn't believe there's any basis to them. Various Russian officials have been speaking, but nobody on camera yet. We're just getting reports that are coming through us from state media who have been speaking directly to them. The Russian sports minister, Vitaly Mutko, spoken to RIA Novosti, the sports department at RIA Novosti, saying that this World Athletic Doping Agency, I keep saying dating, has no right, it says, no legal right to make these kind of allegations. He also rejects them. Other deputies in the State Duma, which is the Russian parliament, saying that this is part of a political campaign. This seems to be the thrust of the Russian defence at this stage. This is a political campaign to discredit Russia and to put pressure on it before the next Olympic Games in Rio. And so at the moment, no one is really saying, yes, Russia has a problem. No one in a Russian officialdom anyway is saying, yes, Russia has a problem, we need to address it. Everybody's being very defensive and saying this is a part of a smear campaign against the country's athletes.
That's right. Some there are calling it a Western government conspiracy. So what would the reaction be there if Russian athletes cannot compete in the next Olympics?
Oh, well, I mean, first of all, I don't think we're at that point yet. I mean, the International Olympic Committee have released a statement within the past few minutes saying that they're going to be looking into these allegations. And the World Athletic Doping Agency says that it doesn't believe if the Russian government acts now and the Russian authorities act now, it will miss any major competitions. But if it were to be the case that Russia were excluded from the Rio Olympics next year, I mean, it would be a huge scandal, not just sporting, but political as well. I mean, Russia is a sporting and athletic superpower. It hosted the Winter Olympics in 2014. The swimming world championships were hosted in Kazan, a city in central Russia, earlier this year as well. And of course, it's got the World Cup here in 2018. And so it's a major sporting country. Don Ridelll was saying there it came second, is what I'm hearing, in the medal table, depending on how you add up the medals, from the United States in the 2012 London Olympics. So it's this major player when it comes to sports. But it's also very important politically for the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, to show the Russian people that they may have an economic crisis, they may have problems elsewhere in their country, but they can deliver when it comes to sports. They're still at the top table when it comes to sports. It seems now, though, from this report and from other reports, frankly, that we've had over the course of the past 12 months or so, that Russia will go to extreme lengths, or Russian officials, certain amongst them, will go to extreme lengths to make sure their athletes succeed, Lynda.
Certainly. Well, and this goes right to the top of the Russian government. Matthew Chance, we appreciate that perspective from Moscow. Thank you very much.